The Soybean School on realagriculture.com is brought to you by Pride Seeds, High Stick NT, and Cruiser Max Vibrance Beans.
Bernard Tobin here for the Soybean School, joined today by Horst Bohner, OMAFRA soybean specialist here at the Stratford office. Hey, thanks for taking the time.
Well, very good. Thanks for coming. Welcome.
Awesome. Hey, I want to talk a little bit about 2016, the year in soybeans, and talk about what we've learned. And I know you're still crunching numbers, but I think you've got a good sense of that already. I guess maybe we'll start in July. I mean, we've had a real good crop, but hey, it didn't look too good in July.
Absolutely. Let's be honest, we were pretty nervous for a long time with the lack of moisture. Pretty scary stuff for a lot of growers, right? And at the end of the day, let's be honest, it didn't turn out well for quite a large part of the province, right? I mean, Niagara, Eastern Ontario, parts of the north, not so good. Yeah. We had guys who literally didn't harvest anything. Just such a poor plant stand and never did recover, right? But on the whole, your point is right on. I mean, things turned out better than we thought they would in terms of a provincial average, and those big soybean growing areas, it turned out quite well for a lot of guys.
You got an average that's about 45 bushels.
Yes.
A little bit below the 5-year average, but pretty good, as you say, once those bad areas got factored in.
Well, absolutely, right? I mean, you got to remember, this year there were 2.7 million acres, right? Our biggest crop in the province by far. So when you bring in all those acres, sometimes we get swayed when we hear, some of those good yields coming in the best areas. So certainly there were guys this year who had farm averages of over 70 bushels, right? Amazing. I mean, we know some guys who had the best year of their whole career, right? So incredible yields for some of us. And at the end of the day, the 5-year average is 46.6 bushels in the province, not including 2016. And with about half of the acreage reported today, we are sitting at about 44.8 bushels, which, I think is pretty good when you consider the year.
Let's talk about what you learned, and I've heard a lot of people talking about this already, and that is, this is probably one of the years where soil health, rotations, healthy soils really started to pay, and you could see the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. In a year where there's extreme stress of whatever kind, and it seems especially true of dry conditions, those things that make the soil, the sponge, healthier, help those roots to get deeper, really play a big role in achieving good yields. So for sure, we learned that a dry spring, and we've had this before, a dry spring is actually good because the roots they go deeper, right? They drive deeper, and they're more prolific. And with soybeans, because they're so prone to root diseases, there were less diseases this year. So, we were set up from that standpoint for good nutrient uptake if you got the moisture later on. And so sometimes I think we get too nervous in May, June, even the first part of July about things being dry. Boy, they can be pretty dry, and it actually turns out for the best, right? As long as the moisture comes in time, and boy, it came just in time, I think, for some, and not for everybody, right? So that's the way I explain what happened in terms of the big picture. And there is this other thing that soybeans are known for, and that we haven't really been able to figure out entirely, but it's this issue that if you stress them at the right time, under just the right circumstances, that they'll actually yield more if you let them recover quickly out of that, right?
One thing you talked about earlier on, before we went on camera, was, yes, it's great to have healthy soils, but fertility is so important, right? You talked about those roots driving deeper, but got to have something there. And you saw some great responses this year.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that worries me a little bit about this soil health conversation that we have is that there's this concept that if you keep your soils really full of bacterial and other life forms and lots of roots, and make it a healthy soil, what you and I would consider a healthy soil, that we don't need to think as much about P and K, right? Phosphorus and potassium, just because the roots are more able to tap into available stores. Well, I think that there is some truth to that, but fundamentally you still need P and K because you're removing it in the grain that you're taking away. So unless you stop removing grain, there is no solution to that problem. And in a dry year, what happens is that the yield responses to putting on fertilizer become even greater. So just one example, over at the Elora Research Station, we've been building soil tests now since 2011 and comparing that to just throwing the fertilizer on the year of or nothing, and we have a bunch more treatments. Long and the short of it is, where we put on no fertilizer and it was dry as a bone, we had some spider mites up there, it wasn't great, 35 bushels. Where we threw on fertilizer this year, 40 bushels. Where we've built the soil, over 50 bushels. 35 to over 50 bushels, right? Incredible response this year.
Talk about, I guess, disease. Now, this wasn't a disease year, but anyway, but in a kind of strange way, it really, the yields that we have were a disease story because of the absence of disease.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. There is this...
drought played a big role in that.
Yeah, for sure. When conditions are dry, right, you have less root rots, you have less white mold, obviously. And as long as the insects don't blow up, that's the one bad side of a dry year. We didn't really have a big aphid year, thank goodness, but we did have a spider mite issue. So there's pros and cons. But I think it goes to show that if you can keep the plant healthy, that a lot of our yield potential is lost if it's not healthy, right? So what does this mean for the future? I think what it means is we still have to put even more effort into breeding varieties that are resistant, and this whole question around fungicide and insecticide application is still part of the big picture, right?
Hey, final thing. You've been watching this for the last couple of years. Double crop soybeans. A lot of growers out there doing that again this year. We had yields, 25 to 45 bushels. Are you seeing this starting to sort of take hold, take root? Maybe there's a constituency in there, a spot where this fits every year.
Well, I think what happens is that those growers who have done it and have been successful, of course, get very excited because it's a pretty nice check at the end of the year, right? And like you say, we had guys this year who well over 30 bushels, in some cases 40 bushels. And so does it fit for everyone? Absolutely not. I think the keys are still around, you need to plant early, like by the middle of July it's over, right? We had success in our plots planting on the 15th, and on the 18th of July we didn't. It's literally that tight, right? Because it's just every day matters. The other thing that I think really matters is the kind of field we're talking about. It has to be a productive field, right? If it's kind of a more bony piece of ground that's had lots of soybeans in the history, you're going to have a harder time getting those big yields. So there are producers that are making it work, but there is a whole kind of story around how to make it work. And the one fundamental thing I think that we really as an industry need to figure out, and we're getting there, is the question around what varieties to grow. Because some of these Western varieties, these really short season varieties, are coming to the table with 30, 35 bushels. And some of those girls are amazing, right? We're done in 100 days or less. Pooh. That's pretty incredible, right? Yeah.
Hey, thank you for your time today. We'll be seeing you on the on the speaking circuit for the next couple of months, and I know you'll have lots of numbers and lots of other stories to share with us.
Very good. Thank you.
We'll see you again.
Take care.